All participants are requested to please keep your audio off for the better audio-video feedback. Now ma'am will keep the lecture mode for proper audio-video feedback. If you want to ask anything, you can message in chat box. At the end, ma'am will reply all your questions from the chat box. And at the end, we'll keep finally question answered directly with the ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Priya ma'am for continuing the topic sports rehabilitation and injury prevention. Ma'am, please continue and please keep the lecture mode on.
Hello everyone, can everyone see me? If yes, then type Y. You coming? Am I audible to everyone? Wait a minute, am I audible? I'm not getting your messages or anything. Not yet audible. Okay, how about now? Can everyone hear me? All right, okay, then I'm going to start with the conference. Okay, the topic is what is sports rehabilitation and injury managed prevention. The app is not working properly. All right, well, can anyone tell me what is rehabilitation? Because rehabilitation is something, if you talk about what is rehabilitation is whenever a person gets injured all right? Whenever a person is injured or faces any sort of insult, what happens is the functional capacity of the person reduces. So in that case, what we do, we rehab the person to bring the person back to his pre-injury state, all right? जब भी कोई इंजरी होता है, कोई भी इंसल्ट होता है, कुछ भी होता है, what we do is we rehab the patient, we will give some exercises, we will use some modalities, and we will bring the person back to his pre-injury state or as close to it as possible. Okay. Can everyone understand that? Slideshow. Okay, I'll go for the slideshow. Okay. It'll take a minute. All right. Whenever any person suffers from any insult or any injury, then the person's functional capacity reduces, and that is known as injury. So what you mean by rehab is when you bring the person back to his pre-injury state or as close to as possible, physically, functionally, and mentally. That is known as rehab. Now, what is the difference between sports rehab and normal rehab? Sports rehab is done for the players, for professional or recreational athletes. Okay, they can be professional or recreational athletes for whom the injury can be happening during the match, during a practice session, or it can be happening in the day-to-day activities. So in those cases, we will be using the sports rehabilitation. For example, suppose an ACL injury can occur in a soccer player during a practice or a match. All right, an ankle sprain can occur in a basketball player during the during any of the landing done during the jump activities during a practice match, or it can occur in the Colles fracture can occur in a cricketer while they are going for any accident or something might be happening with them. All right, so in those cases we are going for sports rehabilitation. Now, what is the difference between sports rehabilitation? The difference is of mechanism of injury. The mechanism of injury can one second, the app is creating some problems. Just a minute. Just 1 second, the app is okay. All right, the slideshow will come in a second. So the differences between any normal rehab and sports rehab is mechanism of injury. Injury mechanism differs from player to player, from game to game. All right, suppose for example, the chances of a hamstring tear are much common in a game situation rather than in a non-game situation, in a non-sports person. Hamstring tear, which can occur due to an eccentric control. Eccentric mechanism is happening. Suppose a soccer player is about to kick a ball, and during that, what happens is a person is not doing it in a proper way, or there is some kind of external force happening which can cause the hamstring to go into an injury or go into a complete tear. The level of injury also differs in sports and non-sports situations, because the levels of injury are higher or more severe in sports conditions, because the athlete uses his body as a tool in a sport. So in those situations, the injuries can occur more frequently and at a severe degree of injury will be happening. The percentage of surgical interventions, if we talk about, surgical interventions are more common in sports situations. I'm not saying that in non-sports situation nahi hota hai. Definitely non-sports participants में भी surgical interventions काफी होते हैं. But suppose अगर मैं बात करूँ ACL tear की, ACL tear जो है वो होता है non-sports persons में भी and sports persons में भी. But the surgical intervention for an ACL complete tear are more common in a sports person because he or she needs to use that knee on a very extreme level compared to a non-sports person. Suppose if a sedentary life person है, so that person doesn't need to use the ACL or the knee on that loading level the same way as a sports person will be. So surgical interventions are more common in sports injuries. Now the speed of recovery. When I say speed of recovery, what I mean is the speed of changing the levels of recovery. Like whenever a rehab is happening, rehab takes place in different phases like phase 1, phase 2, 3. So the speed of recovery between two phases, the speed of changing the phases from phase 1 to phase 2 may be a little more higher in the sports people rather than the non-sports people. The reason for that is because a sports person's body is very well trained usually. So when a person has good physique and has a good muscle balance on around the injury, so those muscles can take up the load when other muscle or the structure is injured, and thus the recovery can occur faster. So the speed of recovery means the jumping between two phases is easier and faster in a sports person. It doesn't mean that you should rush through them. You should definitely not rush through them, but it can be a bit faster compared to a non-sport person. If I talk about intensity of rehab, what does intensity of rehab mean? Intensity of rehab and the fitness goal go hand in hand, because a non-sport person's fitness goal will be just being able to walk, maybe jog sometimes, or suppose there's an ACL injury we're talking about. So he wants to walk properly, he wants to climb up the stairs, he wants to sit in his office all day long and work. So that is a different fitness goal. So the intensity of rehab also depends on the fitness goal. But when you're talking about a soccer player has to run, has to stop, has to kick the ball in different directions. So that person will need a different level of intensity of rehabilitation, because that kind of activities are to be done by the person. So that is very much required. So that is what is happening. All right. So that is the difference between a normal rehab and a sports rehabilitation. Now I'm going to talk about different aspects of sports rehabilitation. These aspects fall for even the normal rehabilitation, the clinical rehabilitation. But for sports rehabilitation, we are going to talk about physical aspects, mental aspects, and financial aspects. The physical aspects. Obviously, whenever an injury happens, the person has some or the other physical problem. Then only we are going to go into a rehabilitation. So there is definitely physical aspect which we retrain the muscles. We will go for muscular re-education, coordination, balancing, whatever the injury is there. Accordingly, we will give the exercises. We'll bring the person back to his best physical fitness possible. So that is the physical aspect of a sports rehabilitation. Mental aspect. The mental aspect is a very, very important part of your rehabilitation, which is sometimes, not sometimes, but many times ignored, especially in the lower levels of sports. Because when you're going in an elite level, you have a sports therapist or a sports psychologist with you. All right, so they can take care of the mental aspect. But when you're not in an elite level, when you're working at the district level, or you're working at a suppose state level, at that time, the grassroots level, what happens is you don't have a sports psychologist with you. At that time, you are whole and soul for them. So for that, you need to know how to counsel them as well, because some people are more mentally strong compared to other people. All right. So whenever a player is injured, he or she may have to leave the game for that time being. She have to miss out an entire season for the time being. So that impacts a player negatively mentally as well. To go through that, so the person doesn't go into a depression or doesn't go into a depressive state, you need to counsel them. So that also comes in a part of a sports rehabilitation, which is sometimes or many a times not touched by the therapist because they don't know how to do it. So you need to be good. Like I'm not saying you can take the role of a sports psychologist, you definitely cannot, but you need to be good in your communication skills. You need to be able to talk to your players. Yeah, this is happening. You have to make them understand that any injury is part and parcel of a game. You cannot go beyond it. You cannot have an injury-free person. All right. I've never seen any player at all who has never had some or the other kind of pains. All right. All players, you can take from junior athletes to senior athletes to international elite athletes. every player has had some or the other form of injury in their career. So injuries are a part and parcel of the game, which we understand, but it needs to be understood by the player himself. Because when the player understands that yes, this is okay, this is happening, this happens to everyone, then the recovery also is faster. Because when a person is much more neutralized, much more relaxed that yes, this is part and parcel of the game, then they will be more inclined to work towards it. Okay, I can go back easily. And when they are mentally strong, their physical recovery also occurs at a very high speed. All right. Now, the third aspect that we're going to talk about is sports rehab. Sports rehab is financial aspect. All right. Whenever you're talking about a professional athlete, okay, if you're talking about a purely professional athlete, for them, whenever an injury occurs, what can happen is, first of all, if they do not get the support from their association or from their any committee or something, they have to pay for everything. This happens in non-sports conditions as well. But a sports person needs a high intensity of rehab, a longer rehab sometimes. He needs that. He has to pay for himself. And if he's not paying, if your association is also paying for the injury, what happens is it becomes a financial burden on the association. So you need, that is the financial aspect. The second financial aspect, which is more important, is that when a professional athlete is, anytime he is injured, he can be put out for an entire season. A professional athlete earns from his game. So if a person is not playing, he's not going to earn the money. And if he's not going to earn it, that means he's going to have an issue with his finances. So financial aspect of the game is very much important. So you need to keep that in mind as well. Because a player will definitely be worried about running his or her own household. So that also is a very important aspect of sports rehab, and you have to make sure that the person understands that if he goes through injury rehab properly, then the injury recurrence will not be there, and if the injury recurrence is not there, then he will not. So that is also the important aspect of sports rehabilitation. Now, we have talked about different, I hope everyone's understanding what I'm saying over here. All right. So we have talked about different aspects. Now we are going to talk about different sports rehab. Whenever I have heard anyone speak about sports rehab, everyone speaks about what happens after the injury has occurred and they have gone back from the match or whatever they were playing, and then they have the time to rehab the person. But that's only what sports rehab is all about. Sports rehab, whenever you're a sports physiotherapist, you need to know 4 things. First is your on-field emergencies. Second is your on-field management. Third is your in-match management. And fourth is your off-field management. All right, on-field emergencies, on-field management, in-match management, and off-field management. Now, when I talk about on-field emergencies, what do I mean? On-field emergencies will be whenever a person collapses, all right? Whenever your player is collapsing on the ground, it may be during a match, it may be during a practice. What you need to do is, you are the first person who will be rushing in, being a sports physio, all right? And in national games and everything, you have ambulances available over there, but there are some chances suppose you're practicing, you don't have an ambulance available. So you are the whole and sole medical person they have with them. So you need to know about these emergencies. These emergencies can be when they collapse, it can be a concussion, they may have hit their head, they may have injured some, they may have a fracture, they may have dislocations, they may have some open wounds, and they may also collapse with no pulse. There are very high chances. It happens in games more often than it doesn't. All right, it's a very common thing which can happen, not like very common, but it's not uncommon either. All right, collapsing players cannot, you may not be able to find the pulse them. So you need to know at least basic CPR, and you need to know the basic first aid. You have to be able to see that. You need to know how to process a concussion, how to detect a concussion if you're going to work in the field of sports with a team. Because if you're on the team, if you're on the ground, you are the first medical person that's going to respond to any collapse that's happening. All right. Now, that is on-field emergencies. Now, if I go for on-field management, what I mean by on-field management is, suppose a player is playing a game. All right. It may be cricket, for example. Suppose your batsman is running between the wickets and all of a sudden he collapses, holding his leg. He collapses. What happens is, you are supposed to rush in, you're supposed to go over there, diagnose what's happening, see what's going on, You have to manage it, and then you have to rush out, condition if you want the player to continue playing. So that situations occur very, very often. For that, you need to be prepared. On the ground, what can be done is you can spray the player if there is only some kind of, you have a previous injury, you already know, you just want the spray, they can call you for that. You may need to tape the player. There are chances that the player pulled a muscle or something, the player is feeling some imbalance, then you have to, sorry for that, you have to tape the muscle. You may have to touch the muscle if the player is feeling cramping. You may give some water to the player. There are different things which will be happening. Definitely, if there are any open wounds or have anything like that, then you have to go for your first aid management. So that is your on-field management. You have to be prepared to rush inside, make a decision, treat the player or get out with that player. All right, that decision is also available if you want to leave the game, because obviously if some treatments cannot be done on the field, but if you want a player to continue playing, you need to know the on-field management, you need to know different taping techniques and what you're going to do. Your diagnosis has to be very, very strong, because if you can diagnose it, only then you can treat it. And you're not given that long a time, all right? Whenever you are in field, you're on the game, what happens is the umpires, whatever the referee as per the game, they will stand on your head asking you to do it quickly, whether make the player play or leave. So it has to be a fraction of a second. You have to go, understand what's going on, and tape him and get out, and you don't get more than 5 minutes. So that is what on-field management is all about. So you have to be very, very strong in your diagnosis. Now, if I talk about in-match management means when, suppose in games where there are 2 matches happening back to back, which happens in single solo player matches, and suppose if it's a cricket match or a soccer match or a kabaddi match where there's a half time, or a hockey match, wherever the half time is there are chances that the player might have injured in the first inning. He comes out in the break time and he has to play again in the second inning. So for that kind of treatment, you need to be giving a player a treatment in between 2 innings. All right. Sometimes it is not even a treatment. Sometimes the player will say, "Ma'am, suppose the player will feel that some muscle is bunching up." So you have to release the muscle. So you should need to know releasing techniques. You need to know cupping techniques, which works wonderfully. You need to know kneeling. You need to know taping, as I said earlier. And you need to have your ice bags and everything prepared for it, because there are chances the player needs that. So everything has to be prepared at that time. You have to make sure that in on-field management and in-match management, you also have to make sure they keep hydrating themselves. So there are chances that they may go into cramping because they are not hydrating. So that kind of scenarios also are managed by sports physio, especially in the district and the state levels. When you go above that, the hydration and everything may be taken up by the your trainer part. But if that is not there, then you definitely have to take part of the hydration and everything as well. So that is your on-field and in-match management. When I talk about off-field management, there is an entire different scenario. Once the player is off the field, once the tournament or the match is over, you can decide if you want that thing to continue. If you want the player to play that match or not, if you want the player to take a rest, that can be decided. It can depend on the injury that has happened. Sometimes even during the match, you may have to remove the player because of the intensity of injury. So that definitely depends. So when I talk about off-field management, I'll be talking that into 4 phases. So first of all is your protection phase. Protection phase is when, suppose, an injury is so severe that it is swelled up, there is redness, there are all the signs of infection present, there is pain and everything. So for example, I'll take, suppose, an ankle sprain. So in that, what happens is, in the protection phase, all you can do is you can give them a price technique, that is pressure, rest, ice, elevation and compression. That is what you can give to them. And you can make see if the person can walk or not. You can mobilization is required or not, or you want to give a substitute activity, like suppose you cannot make person walk, then what you can do is you can make the person swim. So what happens is, when the person is doing all that activities, his overall fitness is maintained. So in protection phase, you try to protect the injury that has happened. You don't want the injury to worsen, but you're also maintaining the person's overall fitness, because the thing is that athlete has a level of fitness, overall fitness. If you do not keep that up, if you don't maintain that, to achieve that level of fitness will again become a rigorous task for us. So when you're going for any injury prevention, or if you're going for any injury management, you have to make sure that the other parts of the body are also maintained at their best level. Then there is the intermediate phase. In the intermediate phase, what happens is you can give them open chain and closed chain exercises, you can give them proprioceptive exercises, and you can give them isolated skills. What I mean by isolated skills is, suppose a player is a basketball player. What you can do, you can make the person do shots. You can just standing and they are doing the shots, they are throwing the shots. Suppose a batsman is there. The batsman cannot do any footwork, but he can do the shadow drills. So that kind of things you can be done. That is isolated skills. They are not taking part in the entire training sessions, but you want to keep them in the touch with the game. You don't want them to go entirely differently. So that is intermediate phase. Now advanced phase. If I talk about advanced phase will be when you have the strength, you think the strength is enough, you think the power is enough, then you move to the advanced stage. In the advanced stage, you will be doing sport-specific agility drills. You will be starting with the skills. You will be starting the game drills. Suppose sport-specific agility drills means you want to teach the player to go again into a step out. They want to go for front foot drives, back foot drives, the footwork that is required. That you start with them. Agility drills you will be starting. There are a variety of agility drills that can be done. You can be done with the ladder, with the help of cones, T drills, Ilianis drills, several things. You can choose from them what you want the player to do at what level your player is. Skills, definitely you can take the help of the coach, because you are not the best judge of skills. Let the coach do the part. You can tell the coach, and you can, because obviously a sports is obviously a holistic approach. So you have to take care of the coach, you have to bring in the trainer as well, because sometimes they are better judges of few things. You can tell them what are the restrictions, that this person cannot do this. Then they can take over the skill session. Then game drills. They should start playing little bit of games, like not full-fledged, but like 2 over, 3 over, 5 overs. They will start with that. That is at the end of the advanced phase. Once you have completed that, once you have gone through the entire advanced phase and everything, then you go towards return of sports or return to sports. So return to sport is when you can happen only and only if you have achieved at least 80 to 90% of the strength, of the power or the fitness that was pre-injury. Suppose my ankle sprain, like with the example, if ankle sprain is there, then I need to make sure that my player has at least 80 to 90% strength compared to the uninjured side, or was there, what was the fitness level or the strength level before the injury. All right. So only when that has happened, you have done the agility drills, there are no pains, no swelling, nothing is happening in all the phases, only then you can move towards return to sports. You have to have game drills. Once they have had game drills, they have done short games, then they can go for proper gaming techniques. So that is something which has to be maintained. So, and you also need to give a maintenance program. Suppose player has been injured in a season or in a pre-season period. During the season, you will give them an entire maintenance program. You have to prevent that from re-injury, because if a re-injury occurs, it will sorry about that. If a re-injury occurs, then it's going to be even worse than that. So you don't want that to happen, because an injury over an injury is definitely going to worsen the structures over there. You don't want that to happen. So you have to give a maintenance program. Maintenance programs can be a variety of ways. It depends on the injury that has happened, but you have to go through that. All right. So that will be prevention of re-injury. So our sports rehab consists of on-field emergencies, on-field management, that is all your taping techniques and everything which can be done on the field. In-match management which is done between 2 innings of a match or anything, or between matches. Suppose a tournament is going on, in first match a player has injured something, like he has a cramp or he has some spasm, he's feeling some sort of bunching up of muscles, you have to release them or anything. That is in-match management. And off-field management is your entire 4 phases. All right. I hope everyone is getting what I'm saying. I'm not going very fast, am I? Am I going very fast? Is it understandable? What is not working? Can everyone type a Y if you understand what I'm saying? Or, okay, all right, all right. Now I'm gonna go towards the. One second, the laptop app is not working. Just a minute for it. All right. Now we are going to go towards the other half of our topic, that is injury prevention. All right. Now, what is injury prevention? Injury prevention is whenever you want to prevent or you want to stop an injury from occurring, that is known as injury prevention. So, injury prevention are of two types. One is primary injury prevention and secondary prevention. So, what is primary prevention? Primary prevention means when there is no history of an injury. All right. If there is no history of injury, then the management or the prevention that happens is called primary prevention. For example, it is FIFA 11 plus. FIFA is the World Organization for Football. FIFA have developed a warm-up technique which is called FIFA 11 plus, which if done twice a week, then the rate of injury decreases in the state group, and that has been proven by variety of different it has been proven by variety of different studies. So FIFA 11 is a very, very good example of a primary prevention. Now secondary prevention. Secondary prevention is prevention of re-injury. Like I said in the previous one, that is return to sports, you need to prevent a re-injury from occurring. So that is what is very much required. So prevention of re-injury is known as secondary prevention. Example, suppose an ankle sprain. Similarly, you keep a player going on for balance workout during any season period because he had a history of ankle sprain. That is known as secondary prevention. Now, how do you make injury prevention program? How to make an injury prevention program? First of all, you have to have a selected group of players which you are taking in. All right, you have to divide them according to their. You have to divide them according to their skills. Suppose footballers, then defenders, attackers, you have to divide them. Or in cricket, the bowlers, batsmen, then bowlers also, the fast bowlers, you have to divide them age group wise, whatever age group they are in. And then you have to see types of injuries that are happening in particular age group, particular skill work. Suppose in a in a fast bowler, back pain are common. So you have to see if that is happening in your group or not. Whatever type of injuries are happening in your group, which are more common, you have to make a list of them. You have to know what is going on in your group. Then you have to see why those injuries are occurring. All right. What is the etiology? What is the reason behind those injuries? What is the mechanism of injury that is occurring? Like one or two maybe like it may be a hard luck that has happened, but most of the times it is there that a specific reason is there. They might be having a wrong technique. There are very high chances of that as well, especially in the lower, like the grassroots level players. So in those players, the techniques can be wrong. So you have to see if that is the reason. You have to see if a muscle is more weak compared to other muscles in your age group. So that can be the reason. And depending on the reason, depending on the mechanism of injury that is happening, you need to take the preventive steps. Suppose you have a player, suppose you have very common knee injuries occurring. There are high chances that the quadriceps and hamstring balance, the strength balance is not there. If that is the case, if that is the scenario, you have to make sure that hamstring and quadriceps strength is maintained at an equal level. So that is very much required. Then there are chances of hamstring injuries. Hamstring injuries are also very common in some players because of the reason is you do not go for eccentric control exercises. So you have to include those exercises. I'm sorry for that. You have to include the eccentric control exercises. Because when you're going for eccentric control exercises, the muscle is loaded in an eccentric way, which happens during running. All right. When you're running, yes, it is concentric and everything is happening. But when you have to stop, when you have to make a suppose you are a footballer, you have to go and stop and then kick. To bring that stop, eccentric control of arms is very much required. So for that reason, you need to have a very good eccentric control. But eccentric control can be taught in the training sessions as well. So you have to teach that. You have to train yourself eccentrically and everything. And once you've taken the preventive steps, whatever program you decide, suppose it's for 3 weeks, see the 3 weeks, put them in motion, then again reassess. Okay, you have to keep reassessing it, whatever programs you make. You cannot say that, yeah, I've made this is the best thing. No, you have to keep reassessing it. You have to document everything. You suppose apne injury types of injury, you document what was in the preseason period, what was the types of injury that came previous season, see what was the mechanism, what was not. Then you take the preventive steps for in the just the season period, starting of the season period. Then again you reassess in the mid, see whatever changes you need to bring. Then you again put a new prevention plan and reassess. So that's the cycle. That's the cycle you have to keep on going, because it's trial and error method sometimes. Because preventive steps work. Some things will work for some players, some things will not work for some players, because it is an individualized program. So you have to make sure that you are covering everyone individually. And even individually, you may have to keep fine-tuning the things, because your players will get habituated to exercises, their bodies will get habituated to exercises. So you may just increase the workload. You don't have to keep giving different types of exercises, but you can increase the workload, decrease the workload, especially during the season period. You don't want to introduce new exercises, because in the season period to learn something new, they don't have that kind of time. So increase or decrease the workload, you can manage that way. So you have to keep assessing the plan. You have to keep assessing if it is going properly or not. That is the best way to make any success plan to make any prevention program successful. Now, what are the components of injury prevention program? Injury prevention program, it will again, I'm talking about primary and secondary program. Whatever program you're happening, an injury prevention program is a multi-model technique. All right, you have to take a variety of things, combine them, and you have to give small programs. It cannot be very long. It can be happening like twice a week, thrice a week, depending on which phase of competition phase you are in. If you're in the pre-season period, off-season period, you may have more sessions. In the competition phase, you may not be able to have that many sessions. So that very much depends. You have to make sure that you match the program as per the competition phase. Now, prevention, the components will be like stability, strength, power, coordination, balance, stretching, agility, speed, load monitoring, everything you have to keep on doing. In the difference between primary and secondary prevention is mainly strapping, taping, and bracing. Because the player has a history of any injury, in the secondary prevention, I'm really sorry about that. Because the player has any history of an injury, in the secondary prevention, you may need to tape that area, or you may need to give a brace to the player for that particular area to prevent the injury from occurring or the injury from recurring. So that kind of things is happening in the secondary prevention. Load and training volume has to be maintained or has to be monitored in primary and secondary prevention, but it is much more important in secondary prevention because already a history of injury is there. So particular load coming on that part has to be monitored very, very minutely, so that the re-injury doesn't occur just because of the loading. So you have to make sure that other than all the physical aspects, you have to make sure that you know how to monitor the load of the player. All right, there are several load monitoring programs available. You can choose one of them which is best for your sport, for your players. You have to choose that and you have to refine that. Nothing is exactly the way it is. You may have to refine a few. You will have to do a lot of documentations. You will have to take care of each and everything minutely. But you have to go through that to monitor the load on the player. Because if the load monitoring is happening, if a player is getting proper training and is not getting overtrained, then the recurrence of injuries or occurrence of injuries reduces tremendously. Then recovery periods. What happens is sometimes I've seen mainly in the grassroots level players, they keep on practicing. That's not the way it goes. You have to make sure that they understand that they are supposed to train to play and not play to train. Okay, this is a very, very important thing. They have to train to play and not play to train. You cannot train your muscles just by playing. No, you have to have the strength to make that play become possible. So they have spent they have to spend that time in the gyms, or they have to spend the time other than non-sporting activities making their body ready for that sport. So that is very much required. Recovery periods between two sessions. Sometimes I've seen players going to associations, playing over there for 4 hours, then coming back, again going to their private, playing there for 4 hours, then again going to 4 hours. So that kind of technique, that kind of thing will only and only result in an overtraining. And when a person is going into an overtraining, when a body is going into an overtraining, positive results are not achieved that easily, because it's just give me a second. That will not result in positive results, because a body has its capacity. You can overload a body up to a limit. Beyond that, if you go, you are going to damage your muscles. You're not going to get the muscular strength that is required. You're going to keep, the strength will go on decreasing. So recovery periods are very much important, because when you're recovering, what happens is the muscle gets the chance to heal. Whenever you're doing anything, micro traumas keep on happening. So your muscles, your ligaments, they get the time to relax, they get the time to recharge themselves. Sleep cycle. Players I've seen many times, they get anxiety so much they do not sleep before the match. But sleep is very, very important, because when you sleep, your growth hormone release is maximum when you're sleeping. So that is very much required for the healing of the body. And to top it off, when you're sleeping properly, your sleep cycle is normal, your brain is recharged. The brain gets the required time it needs to shut off. The conscious needs to shut off. And when that happens, you are sharp, you are very much attentive, and you can make the split-second decisions during the match. So before a match or before any practice, or even throughout the day, you have to make sure throughout the season, throughout the year, you have to make sure your player is sleeping properly. You can keep a track of everything for them. Then nutrition. Nutrition is, they need to get good food. A player exerts so much energy on the match that on a match or on a practice, they are physically very, very active. A sports person is the most active person. So you have to make sure they get enough fuel. A body runs on fuel, and for our body, fuel is food. It has to be proper food. It cannot be junk food. It cannot be just cheese, butter. Yes, they are required for them up to a level. The fats, carbs, everything is required, but they need to have proper nutrition. They need to have nutritionists if possible. If not, then you are the only one the physios are the only one who are going to give the guidance. So it's better if a physio, you're working, you don't have a nutritionist with you, you don't have a trainer with you who has a knowledge of nutrition. It's much better if a physio gets trained a little bit into it, because you need to at least give them the advice on what are recovery foods, because there are certain foods which will also help in recovering faster. So nutrition is a very, very important part of the player. Proper equipment. If a player has a very heavy bat, suppose a 16-year-old cricketer has a very heavy bat, what will happen? There are very high chances that the player will have injuries in the forearms, arms, shoulders. Their body is yet not accomplished or yet not strong enough to do that. So they need to have proper equipment. They need to have proper shoes. Suppose if it's a running sport, they need to have proper shoes. They need to have proper clothing. Clothing can shackle to them. You don't want that happening. You don't want the player irritated. So you have to make sure they have proper equipment. So a physio's role is a very, very drastic role. You have to cover everything. You have to cover their load monitoring, which you can do with, like I said, with different programs. You can manage your own programs. You need recovery periods. Make sure that you have a very frank chat with your coach and with their management. Make sure, because sometimes it happens when a coach is trying to I'm not saying it happens very often, but you have to make sure that a coach knows that this player's capacity is less, because sometimes what happens is some players are seasoned players and new players come into them. All right, so in those cases, you have to make sure the new players get more recovery when it is required. Usually the coaches are very known about this, but sometimes you need to have frank chat, especially if you feel that something is going on. Sleep cycle. Keep a track of the player, or ask the player to keep a track what number of hours they are sleeping. If they keep a track, if they write it down, they will know that they need to sleep more. They will know that they need to shut the phone or whatever. They need to go to bed by 10 o'clock. Whatever is your schedule, wherever they start, it depends on when you start the day. So that kind of things are to be maintained. And nutrition. Make sure that they get good food. You need the good food. Body needs the good food that is there. All right. So all right. So that will be the end of this. As I've said, everything has been covered. So if you guys have any doubts now, you can most definitely message and we can get through them. If you didn't understand anything, if you want something to be taken up again, just a minute, I'm trying to get the app to work. You can type them and I'll be taking those up. Okay, someone is asking me what is load monitoring. Load monitoring is something which depends. There are many people asking about load monitoring. What is load monitoring is? Load monitoring is when a person is going through any sport. Whenever a person is going through any sport, he has different things going on. He has his training going on. He has your rehab or prevention programs going on. He or she has his own skill work going on. So that kind of thing is very much what you do is you need to see that they don't go into overtraining, they don't go into exhaustion. Okay, the load monitoring means how to prevent the player from into exhaustion unless until it's absolutely necessary. So you don't want ever a player going into your exhaustion period. So be monitoring that how much load has come on the cardiovascular aspect, on the muscular aspect, that kind of thing is known as load monitoring. Okay, and I have one more question. Let me. Okay, some example of eccentric control for hamstring will be your Nordics, NORDICS, Nordics. So that is one of the examples. Anything to keep in mind for pediatric sports assessment? The main important point for pediatric sports you have to keep in mind is the fact that you have to make sure you do not treat them as young adults. Okay, a pediatric person, a child is not a young adult. His body is not there, his body is not at the level of that injury. So you have to make sure that you treat them as a child and not as a young adult, because you have to make sure when you're making them happy, you have to make sure, suppose you're training them for anything, then whenever you're making them train for anything, make sure that you keep their interest in. They have a very short span of time, interest time. So you have to make sure that you have to keep their interest going on. You have to keep inside this. Okay. Can we administer basic painkiller on example? Sports physio is allowed to a sports physio is allowed to have over-the-counter drugs with them, all right, which may consist of the basic painkillers like a paracetamol or ibuprofen. Those kind of things are allowed to a sports physio, but for any antibiotics or any drugs, you need to be able to give that to that has to be done only and only via a physician. Warm period will remain same during after injury, or it takes time. Warm-up period will differ from game to game, and it definitely remains almost the same. It may happen that the player will do something more before that, some activations before that, but warm-up period which happens with the team will remain. The entire team's warm-up will not change. But yeah, the player who had been injured, he can have some rehabilitation to be done before he goes into the before he goes to the field. How to treat cramps on the field? Okay, I got your, okay, I'll give that. Hamstring, cramps. Whenever you're going for cramps injury, what you can do is you can hydrate them and you stretch that out. There's not much that can be done. Yes, hydration with sodium, you can give them energy drinks which will be helpful for them. So that can be used. And because of alteration in quadriceps hamstring ratio, is glutes affected? Yes, it can be affected because glutes take up the load. When a hamstring is weak, glutes can take up more load than they should, and because of that, the treatment for that will be you have to increase your hamstring strength. You have to make sure your quad hamstring come into the same ratio. So for that, you have to make sure you treat your glutes. You keep training the glutes because they are taking up the load. You have to make sure hams go into training as well. They go for concentric and eccentric loading, and then you can go for quadriceps strength also has to be maintained. Don't do this that you bring the quadriceps down to get the equal ratio. No, you have to make sure that the quadriceps strength and is maintained and the hamstring strength is brought to the level. What should be the intensity of rehab? Intensity of rehab very much depends on very much depends on which exercise is happening. So which injury is there. So intensity is not something I can discuss very easily. It will depend on the injury to injury which is happening. What is Nordic? Nordic is an eccentric exercise of hamstrings. It's NORDIC. So you can see that in that exercise what happens is you sitting in a you are sitting with your knees on your knees. Someone is holding your feet or ankles from behind, and you are dropping your body in a controlled fashion forward. That is what is called Nordics. You can find the videos online if you want. Okay. All right. Any more questions? All right. I guess that's the end of it. Don't have any more questions, I guess. Thank you so much, everyone. I don't think there are any questions left. All are done for. Okay. For example, for recovery food can be your broccoli is very much better for that. Broccoli is useful. You should have high protein diet after a match or after any session. So you can eat, your eggs are good for recovery. All right. I guess we don't have any more questions. Okay. So I guess we'll be ending this program now. Siddhi, you there? Alright guys, so we are done with this. We are done with this program. Just 1 second. Yeah. Okay, I have unmute you, I guess. Alright, so I would like to thank the college for inviting me for this webinar. I hope you guys understood what I've told. And
okay. Hello everyone.
Massage. You don't give that much of massage, you can release it. It depends on which techniques you know. So how do we differentiate overreaching or overtraining? I don't think I get your question. RK Panu, I don't think I get your question.
Okay, so thank you so much, Priya Gupta ma'am, for accepting our invitation and sharing your such a wonderful knowledge regarding sports rehabilitation. So those participants not able to join will provide you the recording of this session. Thank you so much all the participants, and once again Priya ma'am for sharing your knowledge regarding sports rehabilitation and injury prevention.
Thank you so much, Siddhi. Alright, we'll be ending the video over here. Okay, thank you so much. I hope to see you guys next time if we make it.